What do you think he would net in a trade? $20 million a year with Amari Cooper. Get him for a 3rd-round pick, you think?
Yeah.
I think someone will trade for him. Because that's pretty clear what they were doing, right? Like, hey, guys, we're going to cut this guy. Anyone want him? They're trying to get him off the books.
Or trying to get him to, like, do you want to be in Dallas so bad you'd rather restructure and play here than go play somewhere else?
But I read a couple things like Amari Cooper, if he had free agency, like look at the guys that actually hit free agency. Amari Cooper at minimum would get like a 3-year, $60 million deal, $45 million guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
Like Amari Cooper is a productive player. Now he leaves a little to be desired, but you know the reason they're cutting him is not because Amari sucks. It's because they're stuck with Zeke's contract, and they got some. Amari Cooper he had an underwhelming season. He had 68 catches. He did have 8 touchdowns. Remember he had the touchdown in the playoff game? Like Amari Cooper's starting for every team in the league.
Well, it's pretty easy to find places where you go, even a slightly better version of last year's Amari Cooper could be really helpful, right? Indianapolis. I think New England. The Raiders, I would say.
Well, do you think Josh? You don't think he'd want him? Well, he'd be like,
I have 100% think he'd want him. Yeah, I definitely think he'd want him. Yeah, you could argue. Like, I think it's a good match for Derek's skills. I think it's a great match for Mac Jones' skills. I think the Rams absolutely is a possibility, right? Odell not going to be back for a while, so I assume he'll be back cheap for them at some point.
I know they got some cap issues, but like if they can figure out with Rodgers and Devontae, you don't think the Packers be interested in him?
Could Seattle figure out a way to get him?
Yeah, I mean, I think every good team would be interested in Amari Cooper. Again, for the right price. Like, is he a $25 million player? Can I get him for $14 million? And he's been tasting the good life for the last couple of years. I know, right? Making $20 million.
Cleveland,
he's been good. Though.
What do you suggest?
2 years ago, he was 92 for 5 touchdowns. Now, the one thing is, you see all these wide receivers at the combine. Like, do I need to pay Amari? Can I just draft a guy?
Arizona.
Well, if you're going to give Kyler that 150, you know. He would have it. I think Amari Cooper has an enormous market.
Football team?
He has an enormous market.
Commanders? I mean, Bucks?
Del Rio's there.
Like Godwin, right?
He has an enormous market. Amari Cooper will be starting.
Could you get a late second for him?
You might be able to. For a playoff team that's just
Chiefs.
What about the Chiefs? Yeah.
Seahawks already have DK and Lockett, and then that's it. So, yeah, but yeah, they probably need somebody a little cheaper.
Chargers, yeah. If Mike Williams a free agent. You know, it sucks to be a wide receiver, a free agent, and you look up, you're like, DJ's like, it's the fastest group of wide receivers ever. You're like, oh shit, can we just get a shitty group of wide receivers coming in so I can just get paid? Because that's what everyone's on their agent. Well, we just might draft a guy.
It's just the whole 7-on-7 team. Just every time you look up. I thought the corners had good hands, John, from the what do you call that drill? The gauntlet drill?
I think it's a gauntlet, yeah. Where you
the gauntlet drill where you just run. Just
boom, boom, boom.
The key is how you flip the ball behind. And then every once in a while, a guy drops, runs out of bounds, has to like weave through 7 cameramen to get back to the field as he cuts up field.
Yeah, he like jukes out like the assistant DB coach of the guy in a Jets uniform. He does like a 360 around him, keeps running. To me, the smoothest is when you can catch it, and you don't even drop it. You just do like a smooth, like open your hands, and the ball just kind of falls.
Yeah, the way Ozzie Smith used to turn double plays. It's not really even a catch.
Who by far who had the smoothest is the dude from Ohio State, Garrett Wilson. It's like, it's like
it would. Like you agreed, those catches would not stand in an NFL game as catches.
No, they wouldn't. No, because he doesn't even take a step.
Like that actually pisses me off thinking about it. Like we know it's a catch, right? In the drill, that's a catch. Like we got 3 steps and a thing. Like he caught it. Like we know we're watching the guy. He had control of the ball. Anyway, I think I watched the Romo Football Life today, and there was a whole thing on Dez. It just pissed me off. It was bullshit. But question in the stream. Do you think Trey Sermon gets the Ayuk treatment? I mean,
one thing John Lynch said,
he's not going to get. He doesn't get opportunities while in the doghouse. Like at least Ayuk got reps while he was in the doghouse.
The difference though is like you have several wide receivers going out and around. If Elijah Mitchell is just a stud running back, you just ride him like a horse, right? And Trey Sermon is just a backup.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that running backs get hurt. Kyle Shanahan's running backs get hurt.
I thought John mentioned, I don't know if he said this to who he said this to. He must have said
John
this
Lynch,
in the press conference,
49ers GM.
that he thought that Trey just part of the NFL is his vision stuff. It's a little different than college, right? And part of what it's like at Ohio State and Oklahoma, you just have some wide open holes. In the NFL, it's a little more like you really got to understand the offense and know when to cut. And there's an element of instincts that, part of the problem too, guys. Just Elijah Mitchell looks so good so fast, and he makes you look bad.
Right.
Trey did have the one sweet run. He got KO'd.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody else is taking all the reps, it's hard to make an impression. Now there's practice.
Also, here's the other thing. We expect, and I'm guilty as anybody, all these guys, especially bigger name guys, to hit the ground running. Be like, he got to be ready to roll. It's like, not everyone's on the same speed. Never forget, Devontae Adams really wasn't good till his third year. A lot of players, like for every Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, there are Devontae Adams. And this goes for Colton Miller, who I was critical of. Now he was injured that first year, but he was not good, and McGlinchey was way better, and obviously Colton became a much better player.
Also viewed as a little more raw coming out.
Yeah, some guys, but it's just human nature. Like, how many 22, 23-year-olds in any profession are just like hitting the ground running? The most talented guys, yeah. I mean, if you get some dude fucking, some venture capitalist firm, you hire a right guy from Harvard, yeah, he might just be able to take over the company in 2 years. Most guys are going to be swimming, right? And NFL players are no different. I think we hold these guys to such high expectations. And part of it is like a lot of these guys, at bigger programs become so famous. And some of their peers do really hit the ground running. So it really sets a crazy expectation. Like, it's part of the reason it's unfair for quarterbacks. Like, you see that Herbert kid? He's just ready to roll. Like, most quarterbacks are not ready.
Well, every time you've got 5 guys that don't hit the ground running, you have the exception of the rule, and you think maybe, you draft expecting the exception. You draft expecting Justin Herbert. And even the Chargers didn't quite expect Justin Herbert, I don't think. Not that quickly. They didn't start him right away.
The scary part is when
they didn't start it, John.
But they had Tyrod Taylor, right?
Well, yeah, but if they knew that's what Justin Herbert would be, it'd be insane.
Yeah. And sometimes
you thought it was crazy even when they didn't know.
I thought it was nuts because I didn't think.
Yeah, but you didn't even, and give you credit. You were right, but you didn't. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think you thought Justin Herbert would be that immediately. You just said, let's get this guy in there.
And the difference between Herbert he had played so much. Remember? I mean, he started as a freshman. Like, he had so much. Like, I think Trevor Lawrence fell into that. Like, these guys are so experienced. Like, sitting him? What are you sitting him for? This guy's been playing. This guy's played 50 games in his career.
Yeah.
Trey Lance, I understand. Even Mac Jones, I guess. I mean, he only played a year and a half, but he felt like he'd played 7. I asked someone, I was like, how would you compare Mac Jones to Kenny Pickett? And they're like, Mac Jones' college tape was in a different world than Kenny Pickett's. Because, like, Kenny Pickett is widely considered the top quarterback, and he's just, like, to me, historically, before quarterback, when do you think quarterback inflation really took off? 5-6 years ago? Definitely the beginning of last decade, but I think it jumped the shark about mid 2010s. Where it's like, this guy, top 10 pick. I think Kenny Pickett historically, like in the 90s, goes in like the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, we'd probably have to trace the big boom in kind of completion percentage and touchdown numbers, right? Where a lot of guys.
Year, the Locker Ponder year, and then it kind of slowed down for a couple years, and then it hit like that stretch of like the Goff, Wentz, just all that like 5 straight stretch of just. It felt like 30 quarterbacks in the first round come in the league over like a 5 or 6 year stretch, which historically wasn't really like that. And still a lot of quarterbacks, even during that time, like it's not like, well, no quarterbacks went in the second day. No, I mean, a bunch of guys still go in the 2nd and 3rd round. Like Malik Willis is a good example. I would say historically, Malik Willis, like a 3rd or 4th round major project, Malik Willis might end up going like pick 28, which to me is insanity.
How about the 2 years before, you're right, the Goff, Wentz, Paxton Lynch, Christian Hackenberg draft. Although, in fairness,
Hackenberg was 2nd round pick, right?
Yeah. But in 13, it was E.J. Manuel, Geno, Glennon. Maybe the next year, Bortles, Manziel, Bridgewater, Carr, Garoppolo. Then it was Winston, Mariota. Those were really the only two guys. And then Goff, Wentz, that draft I mentioned. Yeah. 18 for sure, right? Where it's Baker and Darnold and Allen and Rosen and Lamar. But as it turned out, like, were they inflated or was that just a really good draft class other than Rosen?
Well, I mean, we've had 2 of those drafts in the last, like, 3 years, right? The one that we just had and then that one. That's 10 quarterbacks.
Even 19 had Block and had Daniel Jones and Haskins go in the top 15 picks.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, but also could have just been, was anyone else taking Haskins other than football team?
Probably not. What was his son? Knew the guy from high school or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to go back and check the invitation to the bowling alley to remember what that situation was for the big watch party.